everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm Dr. Primrose ZJBima. I post content about academics, career, and adulting. And in today's episode, I am going to be sharing, honestly, from my experiences, right? So you've seen graduation videos, you've seen me posting links to articles, you've seen me sharing vlogs about events that I'm attending, seminars and conferences that I'm presenting at. You've seen me speaking about new research fellowships and lecturing positions, but do you really know about some of the struggles that I go through? Well, just to let you know, I don't live a perfect life, and my life is actually stressful because academia in general is stressful, is it not? So I'm in pursuit of a career that allows me to become an intellectual and a knowledge producer, and there are main requirements when it comes to this, right? The first one is in relation to publishing. You've probably heard the phrase publish or perish. And this is taken very seriously in academia and is taken very seriously in any circles where someone wants to be a thought leader or an intellectual, because they need you to be writing, right? Journal articles, book chapters and books, opinion articles that are oftentimes reviewed by editors, oftentimes reviewed by scholars in the same field, especially people that are already gurus in the same field. So you need to undergo that scrutiny and get that work published post-scrutiny to prove your intellectual prowess. So this is a crazy space, right? You need to publish, otherwise you perish. Where am I at? You will soon find out. And the second one is you need to put yourself out there, right? You can't be a knowledge producer and an intellectual influencer if people don't know anything about your research, anything about your thoughts and opinions, anything about what you're contributing to the world. So you need to put yourself out there through various forms of media, of which I think I do quite a lot of that on LinkedIn and YouTube. And you need to engage on television, via radio. Nowadays, we've also got podcasts. Sometimes it takes going to events and presenting or facilitating. So there's so much that one can do to actually put themselves out there. And then the third one is you need to make a noticeable difference. Now, obviously, your impact is determined by people in your field. Your impact is also determined by people in the world in terms of what do they view as a valuable impact. You might have a plan to do something, but if it doesn't please the people that you're serving in terms of communities, in terms of governments, in terms of organizations, in terms of university institutions, then your impact is not valuable or it doesn't mean much to them. So the challenges I'm going to highlight in this conversation are linked to publish or perish, putting yourself out there, and making a difference. So I'm going to discuss this through 5 key points. I'll reflect on my experiences with research, my experiences with teaching, my experiences with visibility, my experiences with mentoring, and my experiences with attracting funding. So, number 1, research obviously contributes to the idea that one needs to either publish or you perish, which means your significance within academia or your field of study wanes if you're not publishing. So I have done 2 postdoctoral fellowships, one that I did 2021 and 2022 at the University of Cape Town, and one that I recently started at Stellenbosch University. So I've come to realize that as a research fellow or someone who's done their PhD studies, people expect you to have published extensively, specifically in journal articles. Now, I didn't know this when I was doing my PhD. So I got out of my PhD with a lot of publications that were book chapters. That didn't mean that I didn't have writing excellence, right? Because these chapters were reviewed by academics and they were in high-level publications, right? So still, nevertheless, if academia says journal articles are more important than book chapters, then it means that you haven't done as much work as required. So I spent the bulk of my postdoctoral time trying to write for journal publications, right? And my major challenge is that oftentimes, if you just send your article that is based on your own ideas and your own research to a publication, oftentimes it takes long for them to review it. Sometimes they might quickly review it by actually rejecting it because it doesn't suit their needs. And I've realized that many people succeed if they submit a journal article when there is actually a call for journal articles. And in that call for journal articles, they stipulate the topics they want you to look at. They stipulate the types of research methods they want you to have adopted. They stipulate the regions or the areas they want you to have published in. So, for example, is it going to be Africa focused, Southern Africa focused? Is it going to be based on international relations broadly and stuff like that? So, me writing what I love, sending it to journal articles did not cut it. Every article I wrote in that format was either rejected or it's still sitting there somewhere under review. And when I'm still waiting, I mean, I've been waiting for more than a year. So, biggest lesson that I learned is, I think for me personally, or maybe some scholars, particularly from Africa, is ideally you should submit to a journal if there's a call for papers, because it means they're serious about a certain topic and you're going to tailor your work towards that. Now, in addition to this, I also think that I lacked the skill that is required in terms of looking for journals that match my interests. So that is to say that I wrote well, I had done my own research, and I had written well enough for me to perhaps be published, but I wasn't submitting to the right journals. And I actually got that feedback from one of the journal articles I had submitted to actually quite recently. I was working on a journal article all of December, submitted it in January, and then in February they rejected me because it didn't suit their journal, even though I thought it did, right? And much of it actually had something to do with my writing style. So I had submitted this paper to a journal on migration studies, and because I had written on a migration related topic, I thought, you know what, they were going to accept it. But then I was looking at this migration issue in the paper from an international relations perspective and from a feminist perspective. And I think that the editors, or, you know, the reviewers at that space actually aren't familiar with looking at migration from that perspective. They usually look at migration management through other lenses and through migration theories, something that I'm not well versed in. So I think that led to the rejection. So I've realized that I need to take note of my writing style, take note of the required writing style for the journals that I want to write to, and also maximize effort on researching which journals are calling out for papers and sending my papers there, because it means when they put out a call for papers, they're usually very serious about when they want to get stuff published, right? And their feedback is quite extensive, and you are writing in a way that is customized for reviewers that have been prepared to review articles that are based on that same call for papers. So when it comes to book chapters, like I said, I've become a guru. And maybe that's where I might be making mistakes as well, in terms of I probably write journal articles in a book chapter style. And because book chapter writing is a forte, it's my strength, I think that that's how I'm supposed to write, you know, just subconsciously that's how I write. So book chapters, best way to get published is look at organizations which also put out calls for book chapters. And these are usually linked with conferences, workshops, seminars, colloquiums, and stuff like that. And they often place a greater, I think, sense of urgency in terms of when they want their research outputs. So I've participated in conferences and workshops and some seminars where after presenting your paper, they want you to turn it into a book chapter, add in information that came out of the discussion, because people obviously give you feedback on your presentation. And so you've got a peer review in the format of people giving you feedback on your live presentation. And I've noticed that there's a greater sense of urgency, like I said earlier, and these books get published within the year, post-conference or post-colloquium and whatnot. However, I have attended a seminar where we drafted chapters, they were accepted and reviewed, but for some reason, they never saw, you know, the light of publication. And I have them now, and I'm thinking, where else should I submit them? But because we're so tailored for that conference and that particular book's format, I may have to tweak it extensively if I want it to be accepted elsewhere. I don't have a book yet. I don't know why. I've helped people to write books. I've edited people's books. I've got so many book ideas, and I think that is the major challenge. So, in terms of publications, I don't have a book yet. Hopefully, we'll have one by the end of 2025. Ooh, okay, I'll try for end of 2024. And I think my major challenge is on deciding what exactly I want to write on. I'm totally against turning my PhD thesis into a book because I am so done with that topic, and it was a passion project, but also something that was also very heavy on me, and I don't want to deal with having to turn it into a book. Also, I've seen people that have turned their thesis into books. It takes them even like 1 to 3 to 4 to 5 to even 10 years. So it's not an easy thing. And I don't want to have to deal with the baggage of my PhD thesis and have it be a hard process as well, because the way thesis appears as a thick book is not the same way it will appear in terms of its readability when it is published, because now you're not only writing for academic reviewers and examiners, but you're writing for a greater audience. So in terms of research still, right? Publish or perish. The section is long. People are encouraged to write opinion articles, blog posts, to post on social media and engage with various audiences. But I think that I don't have the career stability that is required for a person to do that. So, for example, I'm basically someone who survives on ad hoc lecturing appointments, right? Temporary appointments, or I'm a replacement lecturer, or I'm a guest lecturer. And as a research fellow, I get 1 year contracts, 2 year contracts, and all of that. And so I don't want to put myself out there by writing opinion pieces that may contradict, the opinions or the agenda of the next place that I'm going to be working at and whatnot. But for example, if I were working for the African Union and I know their stance, I would actually portray that in my work, because they will see me, of course, as an ambassador of their work as well. If I were working for a news channel or for a think tank, I would also have to sort of like tailor everything I write with regards to that. So one of the reasons why I've actually never written in terms of many opinion articles is because I'm very wary about where I'm going, not knowing where I'm going, and how what I write may affect me. However, I do write a lot of opinion pieces about, obviously, African women in politics, the status of African women in international relations, because those are matters I would never be apologetic about. So I think start with an area that is comfortable for you, and then rise into new areas. So for example, this year I was open enough to participate in a conversation about the forthcoming Zimbabwe elections, which is something that I would probably not have done like 2 years ago or 3 years ago. So I'm getting into it bit by bit. All right, we are done with the publish or perish segment. Number 2, teaching. Yo, you know what? I love teaching. And I grew up not wanting to be a teacher because I was surrounded by parents who had a teaching streak. I was surrounded by lecturers and pastors, preschool teachers, primary school teachers, high school teachers, and I just wanted to be different. Even though I knew that I loved reading, that I loved writing, and I loved talking, I also loved teaching my dolls when I was growing up. I loved teaching other kids, but I just didn't want to teach for a living. But I really embraced lecturing. I love it, consistently improving in that area. And one of the biggest challenges in academia is getting a full-time position. In other countries, they refer to this as a full tenure track position, where you know that you're a permanent lecturer. The only way you could be leaving a university is maybe because you're retiring or you've resigned for one reason or another. So I don't have that, right? I spoke earlier about how I'm in an ad hoc situation where people ask me to lecture for them, whether they are lecturers already or heads of department, or whether it's like a university or an institution. But I lecture for them as someone that has short-term contracts. So basically I have lecturing stints. And it does frustrate me to be a guest or a replacement, because it means that whatever goals I have with the teaching, I can't really invest much time in it, because my time is very defined. And sometimes I go to a university where I used to teach, and students are like, "Why aren't you teaching us anymore? How come we can't visit you in your office anymore?" And I have to be like, "Actually, I was a replacement. I wasn't there for full time." I've had so many postgraduate students that I lectured who wanted me to supervise them, but I can't supervise them because I don't have a permanent position in that university. So that sucks and that hurts. And the only way is if a university or some institution takes me in on a full-time basis as a lecturer. So yeah, I've got so many rejections in my mailbox and it's strenuous. And one other thing when it comes to lecturing on an ad hoc or freelance basis is the pay is very low. I probably get per month like a third, at most actually a third, like probably 25%, 20% of what like a real-time professor gets, right? Per month. So that hurts. And as you grow older, you realize that you can't just be out here lecturing because you are passionate. You need to pay bills, right? Your cost of living is increasing. Your parents that you're depending on now, they might actually be growing to depend on you, right? There's so many other factors. Your lifestyle changes. I can imagine right now if I were to get married and have kids, it would be a super struggle. So teaching I love, but it's not giving me what I needed to give to me. And the only solution is if I get a full-time position. And so last year, for example, I was teaching in like 3 different spaces because I wanted to get vast experience. But then I had the burden of designing 3 courses, teaching 3 courses, marking for all those 3 courses, coordinating tutors and teaching assistants, doing admin work and writing reports and whatnot. And it took a toll on me. So now I'm only lecturing 1 course, and that's okay with me. And it's in a space where I've got fewer number of students and I can engage with them in a more sort of like intimate academic way, and it keeps me grounded. But like I said, teaching is not giving what it's supposed to be giving. Okay, so I spoke about research, I spoke about teaching, and then number 3, visibility. Oh, COVID-19, 2020, 2021, and some parts of 2022 relegated us to engaging with fellow academics and intellectuals, people in different industries and research gurus via webinars, if you were lucky. And so I didn't get the physical visibility that helps one to network on a very high level, right? I personally believe that seeing people, interacting with individuals on an in-person basis is so much better. And so I lost years of visibility. And I lost them in the period that I was finishing my PhD and in the period that I just finished my PhD. So it's only now that I'm trying to engage by going to events, presenting at events, engaging in proper seminars, not webinars. And also, I think I try to maintain my visibility online via LinkedIn as well as through this YouTube channel, right? I think those are also other good elements of visibility. I've gotten opportunities because of my visibility on these channels because people can reach out to me for me to work with them. And then also, in terms of attending events, they're very helpful because you gain more insights and knowledge about issues that you might not have known about, by being in one institution or being in one company or in one organization. And then when it comes to visibility, I'm so good at accepting radio interview requests. I don't know why. It's something that I've always done since I was like probably doing my undergraduate studies. I have a challenge with speaking for TV, so it's a fear that I need to conquer. Weird, right? I speak on YouTube, so TV, what's happening? I don't know why, but I always reject TV interview requests. So hopefully by the end of this year, I'm going to have my first real TV interview and be out there with like BBC, ENCA, SABC, whatever the case may be. But I am going to do that. It's a challenge. And so if anyone is watching and they want to invite me to their show, you're welcome to do so. Same applies to podcasts. And then, the thing with visibility is that when you're putting yourself out there, it means that you are vulnerable, right? And sometimes you can work around it, right? So I can post a video on YouTube and make sure that I disable comments, because I feel like if comments come for this, hey, I'm not going to deal well with it, right? But then if you're going to be in other platforms, you are up for scrutiny and there's no two ways about it. And that's one thing I really don't like about seminars and webinars. Oftentimes I get anxious because I've presented in spaces that were highly charged. I understand, yes, that in academia, people put you on a chopping board. They want to flex their intellectual muscles and show people that they, as a professor, can shoot down all your key points and tell you to go back to stage one of your research and whatnot. So, I used to be in a space where whenever I presented, I knew that was coming. And I went from trying to listen and taking in everything that was being advised to actually just saying, you know what? All I'm going to say after their feedback is, thank you for your input. I'm going to consider it. And so I think we need to be very mindful sometimes that you might be in spaces where the scrutiny will just be too much, right? I survived from having a supervisor who was very supportive, because then he was a professor and then he would tell me how, the certain points that were mentioned were helpful, but then certain points were just like way off because, probably the person who commented didn't understand my topic and all of that stuff. So I had that form of assurance. Sometimes you need the assurance of your parents or friends or someone who understands or can empathize, because really things can get really tough. So I think I've had points where I relapsed, points where I thought I had writer's block, when it's in fact just me still thinking about how I can't write. People were second guessing me. People were telling me that, girl, you need to do so much more. Why don't you compare what you're saying about Zimbabwe with like other cases and whatnot and whatnot? Like sometimes it made sense, sometimes it didn't make sense. But yeah, so sometimes when you're visible, scrutiny hurts and it can actually like take you back to ground zero. All right, so my number 4, right? I said research, teaching, visibility. Number 4, mentoring, something I love also. And I think that I easily fit this into teaching. So especially when I'm teaching postgraduates, because they're smaller groups, or when I'm teaching a smaller group of undergraduates, I try as much as I can to also provide mentorship, to also give them guidance, to prepare them for the world of work, to prepare them for the world of research if they want to do research and whatnot. But also mentoring can be very draining, because if many people want to talk to you, it's a lot. So when I was a lecturer and I had like 201 students on a course and maybe like 21 to see you in 1 week and whatnot, it weighs down on you, because you're an emotional being and also your emotional capacity actually wanes, right? And when you are pouring into all these people's academic souls and yours is being depleted and no one is feeding into yours and you're not getting breaks or rest, it can actually lead to feeling defeated. So I really wish I had a way to refer people to other people that can mentor them, right? I know at university sometimes you refer people to psychologists, sometimes you refer people to support facilities on campus, but sometimes students are just like, ma'am, you inspire me. I want to talk to you. So I try through my YouTube channel to be like, you know what, if you need me as a mentor, check out this video on X, Y, and Z. If I haven't addressed what you need to be addressed, tell me what you think about this topic and maybe I can create a video on that. But it's really hard, right? So I wish there was many versions of me. And so yeah, it's hard. One thing I want to venture into is becoming a sponsor, because I realize that you can only give so much to people by giving moral support. But sometimes people's challenges are financial. Sometimes people's challenges require maybe like innovative ideas that just require money. And I don't have the requisite funds for that. And I think one of the first things I'll do when I get the big job, of course, is to start a foundation, and also to try and find people that can actually sponsor my own initiative, so that I can have a platform in which I can sponsor people, whether it's through fees for their postgraduate studies, whether it's through research grants and whatnot. But I think I need to do bigger and better, because also, I'm growing bigger and better myself. So number 5, Remember, I said number 1, research, number 2, teaching, number 3, visibility, number 4, mentoring, and now number 5 is about attracting money. So attracting money in academia looks like being able to get research fellowships, being able to get research grants, and I've obviously, scored successes in terms of getting research fellowships with at least 2 universities in South Africa, 2 of the biggest universities on the continent. That's the University of Cape Town and Stellenbosch University. But I'm not lucky at all when it comes to grant writing and actually getting a research grant. Because for context, fellowships can be from as little as like 50,000 rands to about 400,000 rands a year, right? But a grant can even be like up to like R1 million, South African, currency. So I think I need to find someone, a consultant or an expert academic who can help me with the requisite skills, because I think if I manage to get research grants, I'll be in a better position to do research and to do projects that span beyond like 1-year contracts, for example. And I think if I'm able to attract money, it's like in business, if you attract a lot of money, people want to work with you. So if I've got evidence that I attract big research grants, maybe, and just maybe, I will get that big academic job that is sealed as a full tenure position, permanent lecturer, whatnot. But yeah, I think for today we end here. What I just want to say is that one always needs to keep an open mind. So yes, I want to be an intellectual, I want to be a thought leader, I want to work in academia, I want to work in universities and whatnot. But maybe if universities don't want me, or they want me temporarily, I must look elsewhere, right? So definitely, I've always had my net wide in terms of job applications. Perhaps, of course, most of my applications have been biased towards academia, but I'm keeping an open mind about where I apply to and the kinds of jobs I apply to, and also just trying my best to improve my skills in other areas. So, for example, I've got extensive experience in editing, and I've done a course in copy editing, and I have some relevant work experience having worked in government and in the think tank sector. And I'm trying to brush up on that by doing courses that are linked to project management, so that if someone is willing to take me on, right, and we are working in a space where one needs to do research, but it's a project, it's short, and it needs to be managed effectively, I've got the principles, right, and I'm able to apply myself fully based on that. So that's it from me today. I hope that you enjoyed this one, and I am definitely going to share more in my next video, of which I'll be sharing about how I deal with life's challenges in general. I don't think it's nice for me to always share from the academic perspective, because some people are on this channel as subscribers or followers, not because they like academic content, but because they want to know more about the stuff I have to say about life as well, since I post about academics, career, and adulting. So that's it from me today. I will see you in the next one. Bye.